Right guys, welcome to some Paper 3 exam practice. The topic we're going to look at today is ethical implications and social sensitivity. It's not a topic that's come up hugely often so far, so if you're currently preparing for the 2022 exam series, I would probably be expecting a question on this, particularly as it's in the advanced information. But, that being said, don't come after me if I'm wrong. Papers 1 and 2 did some things that people weren't expecting, so maybe Paper 3 will do too. But it's best to be prepared. So, this isn't going to be a long video as we're only going to be looking at 3 questions. We've got a nice simple 2-marker followed by a 4-mark application question, and then we're going to finish off with a 16-mark essay. As always, the links to the different questions are in the description section below, so you can jump to whichever question you may want to see. And then, just before we get started, if you find this video useful, it would be awesome if you could let me know by giving it a like. So, let's get started with our first question. It's a nice, short 2-marker that is asking for a definition. Now, the question is asking for socially sensitive research, so make sure that you are clear on the difference between socially sensitive research and ethical implications. They're fairly close to each other in terms of definitions, and it's an easy way to drop marks if you get those two confused. If you want to have a go at the question, then go ahead and pause the video now, and go ahead. So, here is my answer. It's 2 marks, so we've gone for a definition followed up by an example just to seal the deal. It's not always an absolute must, but I just feel like it adds a bit of depth to my answer. Okay, so we've got the definition in purple with the example in pink. So, moving on, this is the second question. Now this came up in one of the A-level specimen papers that were released back in 2017. So, as you can see, we're being asked to deal with the issue of social sensitivity within a particular piece of research. So, obviously, the first thing that we need to do is work out what issues might actually arise from this study, and then we can talk about how we're going to deal with them. So, if you want to have a go at answering this question for yourself, take a minute and have a read of the STEM, and work out what it is that you want to say, and I'm going to move on and reveal my answer. So, this is how I would go about it. We don't need a definition or anything because the question asks us how to deal with it, so that is where I'm going to start, with an example of how it could be dealt with. And that is awareness of the issue. Okay, so researchers have to show an awareness of the socially sensitive nature of their study. I'm then going to move on and I'm going to give an example of why we need to deal with the socially sensitive nature of my study, and also what could happen if we don't show an awareness. Okay, one example should be fine. You can give 2 examples if you want, that's also not a problem. I'm then going to finish off with a concrete way of dealing with those issues, and I'm going to draw on my knowledge of ethical issues and guidelines. Okay, so I'm going to talk about things like making sure that the people involved are anonymous, making sure that the community and the school is anonymous by changing names and not revealing anything that could identify the people or the community in question. I've also said a little bit about the right to withdraw as well, because participants might decide halfway through the study, once they actually realise what's going on and once they realise what's being asked of them, that they don't want to be part of the study anymore, and they need to be reminded that they have the right to withdraw at any point. So, moving on to the final question, and that is a 16-mark essay. Now, a variation of this question came up in a 2018 paper as an 8-marker, but realistically, there's no reason why this couldn't come up as a 16-marker as well. So, the question's still there. Here's my plan. The sneaky thing about this essay is that it's actually an application question, because there are 4 marks available for the bit where it asks you to talk about a topic that you've studied in psychology. And people drop a lot of marks because they don't realise that that is what they need to do. Okay, so as you can see in my AO2 section, I've gone for 1 topic that I'm going to talk about. The question doesn't ask for any more than that, and I'm more than comfortable talking about Bowlby's theory for 4 marks. So that's what I've gone with. Obviously, you can talk about more than 1 if you want, given that the question asks you to talk about at least 1. However, I wouldn't do more than 2, because otherwise you run the risk of spending too much time on the application section and it's only worth 4 marks. Okay, the last thing that you want to do is run over on that time and then not be able to write as much evaluation or outline because you're spending all that time on the application. You can also see over on the left hand side of the screen what my plan for the outline is. So I'm going to talk about ethical implications, social sensitivity, and then dealing with social sensitivity. And realistically, that dealing with social sensitivity section is going to take up the majority of my word count, because ethical implications and social sensitivity are pretty much just definitions. Also, all the way over on the right of the screen, you've got my evaluation points. So as it stands, I'm going to use 2 evaluation points and a counterpoint. That'll be plenty for the 6 marks of evaluation that is available for you. Okay? So let's have a look at what this essay looks like in the flesh. So, as you can see, I've woven my application into my outline. I've started with a definition of ethical implications, and then I've used Bowlby as an example of ethical implications in research. I then go on to clarify that Bowlby's theory is an example of socially sensitive research, and then I talk a little bit about the importance of considering all stages of planning and conducting socially sensitive research. I've also got a little bit in there about ways of dealing with socially sensitive research, and that makes up pretty much that whole second blue paragraph. I've then got my 3 evaluation points, and the last one, the purple one, is a discussion point. Okay. Now, I would just like to point out here that although this is an application question, you do also have everything that you need here for a really decent regular 16 marker. Just get rid of the 4 marks worth of Bowlby, and then you've got 6 marks of outline with 2 evaluation points and a discussion point, which is plenty to get good marks on this essay. Obviously, if you want to add a 3rd full evaluation point, so then you would have 3 and a counterpoint, that's fine as well. But as it is right there, you've got everything that you need, obviously, for an application essay, but also for a standard essay as well. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the video. It was only a short one, but I hope it's been useful. The ethical considerations and social sensitivity topic isn't the easiest thing to write about, but as with all of the tricky topics, if you practice writing it a couple of times, you'll soon work out what you want to include and what you want to leave out and what you want your structure to look like. So give it a couple of goes and hopefully you will be able to work that out. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the comment section below and I will do my best to get back to you ASAP. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.